Joining us today is a former Major League Baseball player. He was also a native to the Hudson Valley, Joe Ausanio. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
No problem. And Joe, now for everybody listening who may not know of you and your career, can you give them a little bit about your background and because you are from Kingston, New York, and you did play in the Major League Baseball. So maybe for anybody listening out there, you could tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I grew up in Kingston, New York. I went to Jacksonville University in Florida on a baseball scholarship. Ended up getting drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1988 and signed my professional career with them, and ended up with a 10-year career professionally. And I was fortunate enough to pitch two of those years, 1994 and 1995, with the New York Yankees.
Great. Now, you are not you're not new to the world of professional wrestling. For Northeast Wrestling the past few years, you tag team with Goldust, you fought Romeo Roselli, and you fought Dan the Man, all at Dutchess Stadium. Joe, you're a wrestling fan. Were you always a wrestling fan growing up too?
Yeah, I grew up, watching wrestling, watching the WWE, going to the store and getting the NWA magazines, and I was a big time wrestling fan. And you know what? For me, it was a dream come true to actually get in the squared circle, and it actually kind of happened by accident. The promoter came to the stadium, Mike from Northeast Wrestling, and he said, "Hey, why don't you wrestle?" And I looked at him and I said, "Are you crazy?" And then the more I thought about it, I said, "Why not?" So I trained, and I still continue to train to this day.
That's great. And then, did you ever think, after your major league career was over, that you'd be wrestling?
No, probably not. I thought that I'd still always remain a fan, and I think for me right now, it's having fun, but also wanting to make sure I can go to work the next day. So it's a fine balance.
Now, definitely. Now, we've seen you at Dutchess Stadium, and granted, a lot of these kids out there today, they do pro wrestling coming out from college, coming out, straight out of high school or whatever. They're into wrestling. Now, you like I said, you had that Major League Baseball career, and then you went into wrestling. So it wasn't like you really trained to be a wrestler, but you have that natural athleticism that you kind of just fit right into place. And for anybody watching you out there, you took some bumps and bruises out there the few times that you wrestled at Dutchess Stadium, but for anybody watching you, everybody, you get that whole, pro wrestling's fake, but if you could just tell anybody that is listening right now that, that has seen you wrestle, can you just explain to them how much, you woke up the next morning and it definitely, you felt it?
Well, it's kind of funny that you said that. I was telling somebody that, I thought that there was no basketball or no shape like being in basketball shape.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. You run back and forth against the ropes for a minute, and you don't know what hit you. You wake up, you're winded, and your ribs hurt, and you wake up the next day and you're sore. I give professional wrestlers the utmost credit because they do it day in and day out, and they do it. And they put on the same show, and they put on a great show. People have no idea what they put their bodies through, and I do it very, very part time. And I tell everybody when the adrenaline is going and you're in that ring, you don't feel anything. But I assure you, that next day you feel every bump and bruise.
Definitely. Now, Joe, a little bit of other information about you. I know, like we said, you played in the major leagues, but you're also a coach at Marist College up here in the Hudson Valley, up in Poughkeepsie, New York. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for the past 8 years, I've been the head softball coach for the Marist College softball team, and we've been fortunate because we've had some really talented players come through there, and we won a Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference championship regular season, and then we also won a Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference title, where 2 years ago we went to the NCAA tournament and actually played the eventual national champion, the Oklahoma Sooners. So, we've been doing some great things there. I'm really proud of the young ladies that play softball for me, and I'm most proud of the fact that every kid that I've had in the program has graduated.
Definitely. Now, Joe, from Major League Baseball to college softball to pro wrestler to father, is there anything you can't do?
Well, I can't ski. I know that. I always laugh because I figured gravity and me really wouldn't go hand in hand going down a mountain with trees and rocks and other obstacles in the way. But you know what? I'll tell you what, Steve. I've been enjoying doing this wrestling. I've been fortunate to work with some very, very good guys that have taught me the right way to do things. And I assure you, when you take bumps on that mat, it does not feel good. It's not fun.
Definitely.
I'm hoping for a good show, and I'm pitted in a tag team match. It looks like with Big Ange, who made his debut last year, and they're giving us a nickname, the Italian Medallions. I don't know who our opponents are going to be, but you know what? Whoever it is, bring it on. We're going to bring it.
That's right, guys. Everybody, Saturday, August 1st at Dutchess Stadium, home of the Hudson Valley Renegades. If you haven't been to one of these the past few years, can you explain to them why it's so, what's so different about having a wrestling show at Dutchess Stadium compared to maybe, any other venue around here?
Well, I'll tell you what. The thing that I love, what Northeast Wrestling does is, they bring in people who I think everybody grew up just idolizing. I mean, he's brought in Hulk Hogan, and this year we have Ric Flair. I mean, those are two of the biggest names that have ever adorned the square circle. I mean, I saw Bushwhacker Luke is going to be there. One of my favorites from my childhood, Larry Zbyszko, is going to be there. I'm so looking forward to meeting him and just telling him, he was my childhood idol. I mean, I loved watching him wrestle, and I loved him, back in the day when WCW and WWE were having their Monday Night Wars, and he was one of the announcers on Nitro. He did such a great job color commentating Nitro. I think it's going to be a great show, and they have an autograph session. I know Mickey James is going to be there. Matt Taven, the champion, Brian Anthony, who's been a staple in the Northeast Wrestling for years. I'll tell you what. Then you also have former WWE superstars, Alberto Del Rio and Rey Mysterio Jr. I mean, what a card this is going to be. And they're fighting the Young Bucks, who last year, the match that they had with the Hardy Boys was perhaps one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like that, the show that those guys put on.
I mean, being outside is so much better. Like you said, Larry Zbyszko, he had a classic match with Bruno Sammartino down at Shea Stadium, and now it's almost like you're coming full circle to where you're outside in a stadium having another match with Larry Zbyszko in attendance. So that's kind of be great,
I can't tell you how excited I am to meet him. I mean, I have never once asked one of the wrestlers for an autograph in my whole time there. And, I grew up watching a lot of these guys, but I will tell you one thing. I may at least ask for a picture with Larry Zbyszko. He was my childhood idol.
Definitely. And one last thing, Joe, everybody says, training for, professional sports is one thing, but how would you compare training for, pro baseball compared to pro wrestling?
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, like I said, I give professional wrestlers the utmost credit. What they put their bodies through day in and day out, there's nothing like it. And anybody who wants to say differently, I tell you, come and do one workout in a wrestling ring for one night, and you will see what I'm talking about. I mean, just learning how to fall the right way and taking bump after bump, and falling wrong just once, and your hip is bothering you for 2 weeks afterwards. I know professional football players, very close, probably second, hockey third, but baseball is a distant fourth to what I do when I do the wrestling. And I almost wish that I got into this earlier at a younger age. I may have been pretty good at it, but I feel like I do a pretty good job and don't embarrass myself. And I work hard, like I said, to make sure I put on a good show for everybody.
That's right, Joe. And like I said, anybody who hasn't seen you wrestle yet, I mean, you're natural. You're natural in the business already, and I wish you nothing but the best on August 1st at Dutchess Stadium. Joe, we'll see you soon, and hopefully we'll have you back on again to talk more wrestling, all right?
Thanks, Steve. I'd love to come back on, and I appreciate you interviewing me, and looking forward to seeing everybody at Dutchess Stadium on August 1st.